Turner Gill takes over the program in Lawrence. That's the Kansas Jayhawks coming off a 5-7 year, and they went to bowls in 03, 05, 07, and 08, and they won their last 3. Cale Pick, the quarterback, is the front runner to win the job. Tobin Opurum, one of the freshmen last year, over 500 yards and 9 touchdowns. John Wilson and Brad McDougal will try to fill some big shoes at wide receiver, replacing Kerry Meyer and Desmond Briscoe. But Tanner Hawkinson, a sophomore, first-team freshman All-American, and all the returning starters on the offensive line come back. They had a problem last year. Only 112 rush yards per game compared to the last couple of years. They had a strong rushing game, and they allowed 32 sacks.
Yeah, beefed up O-line should help out the running game tremendously. It's the pass blocking that's the question mark that you mentioned. Also, I love their running backs. They got some big, beefy guys back there running back, looking for quickly to get a start as well, too. And you also mentioned Oporum, but keep an eye on true freshman Brandon Bourbon, another talented tailback that they're going to bring in and get some ticks. So that's 3 quality running backs for the Jayhawks. Are going to be able to run the heck out of the football this year. And how well can Cale Pick perform week in, week out? If he can perform consistently week in, week out, tremendous offense right here.
A very experienced defensive coordinator comes over from Mississippi State, and that's Carl Torbush. And when this team was up and coming in 07, when they won the Orange Bowl, they were stopping the run. They held opponents to 3.1 yards per carry. We're giving up 16.5 points per game. So if they could stop the run and have a good defense, this team could be on top fast in the North Division. Jake Laptad, defensive end, comes back. They have 2 great linebackers in Justin Springer, who needs to stay healthy, and first-team freshman All-American Holden Tharp. Secondary is a problem, but cornerback Chris Harris is back.
Yeah, strongest unit on their defense is the linebacker core with Tharp and company. And you mentioned that defensive line. Contrary to popular belief, I think their D-line is solid, but they have to get to the quarterback more. So that's one thing they have to improve. They have to find a way to get pressure on the quarterback. Secondary players are similar in size as well as athletic ability. Everybody's about 5'11", 195, 180. So you have similar size back there, but you lose Stuckey. So that's going to be huge. But you look at redshirt freshman Prince Randall has loads of potential. So if he can come in and live up to that potential, this secondary is going to look a lot better than it did last year, even with the losses of Stuckey.
Well, Turner Gill, he gets one shot at Nebraska until they leave. Should be interesting to see what Gill now does in the Big 12. He's also getting his old recruits from Buffalo to transfer over to Kansas, so they'll be eligible next year. So the future looks bright in Kansas with Gill as head coach. The Wildcats of Kansas State had a 500 year. They are back in the picture in the Big 12 North. Bill Snyder enters his 19th year, his 2nd year back. Carson Kaufman, the quarterback. Running back Daniel Thomas was Big 12 Newcomer of the Year. He averaged over 105 yards per game. That was first in the conference. Aubrey Quarles was injured last year. He's back at receiver, but they had 2 transfers, and Chris Harper, who comes over from Oregon, and Broderick Smith, who comes over from Minnesota, who are really going to help out Kaufman in the pass game. Center Wade Weber and 4 returning starters come back, but they really need to improve their pass block.
Yeah, I like Broderick Smith a lot at wide receiver, and they have to increase their production from the passing game. And you mentioned Carson Kaufman to win the job, but this battle is ongoing, so it's going to go throughout the summer. So they're still going to battle to see who's going to be the starting quarterback. And you mentioned Thomas, outstanding running back, but he's only good as his O-line. The O-line is the best unit on the team, led by guard Zach Kendall. So they should be even better 2010 because that O-line is solid, very stout, and they could win at the point of attack. So that O-line is a beast.
And a horrendous defense in 08 improved dramatically from 08 to 09. They let up less than 15 points per game last year, and they went from giving up 218 yards per game on the ground to 105. So their leading tackle, Emmanuel Lamore, is back. Free safety Tyson Hartman. Defensive end, first-team freshman All-American Brandon Harold. He redshirted last year, but he's back in the mix. And Adam Davis, a defensive end, who's a JUCO transfer. So there's a little promise for the Wildcats in Manhattan.
Now, you mentioned Harold, and you also mentioned Davis. 2 guys that Davis is just transferred over from junior college. He's slated to start right away, so that tells you right there how much talent he has to have as a defender. And you look at the linebacker, keep out on true freshman Trey Walker, 6'4", 205, guy with loads of speed, a guy that can play the weak side linebacker spot with that speed, utilize that getting after the quarterback and chasing down run plays opposite of him. And that veteran secondary has a ton of playmakers, Harrison Hartman and also Lamore. Get used to seeing those guys because they're going to be making a lot of plays back there for the Wildcats.
Well, the last time we saw Missouri was in the Texas Bowl. We're getting thrashed by that Navy option offense. Gary Pinkel enters his 10th year. Blaine Gabbert, a pretty good first year. He's now a junior, but the 59% completion rating needs to be up in this offense because they pass the ball a lot. And Derek Washington, second team All Big 12, another great running back in this conference. Jarrell Jackson, Wes Kemp, and Mike Agnew at tight end will be Gabbert's weapons. And they have a pretty good offensive line led by left tackle Elvis Fisher and Dan Hawk. The last 6 years before last year, they had a low 149 yards per game. Last year, 127, so they need to get that up. They have a great kicker in Grant Russell, who will get them a lot of threes up on the board.
Yeah, they have an outstanding veteran offensive line that excels at pass blocking. Run blocking, they could use a little work, but at pass blocking, which they do most of, they do exceptionally well. You look at Derek Washington, slim down a little bit, which is going to add more looseness to his game, but he is still the best pass-catching running back in the nation. Over 50 receptions as a running back, so that's impressive. So he's going to be another one of my top picks in the NFL draft at the running back spot. And some receiver on that roster has to step up and be that tremendous playmaker to fill the shoes that was left by Denario Alexander. So that's going to have to be a key element to watch this summer.
Their offensive line, an unorthodox setup with their really spread and wide.
Right.
But Grant Russell, let's mention this, NCAA record last year, over 96% of his kicks were hit, so he was good for first team Big 12. He's a good kicker. On defense, freshman defensive player of the year in the conference, Aldon Smith, great defensive end, 6'5", 280-something. Andrew Gakkar and Will Ebner will have to replace some big shoes in Sean Weatherspoon and cornerback Carl Geddes. Their whole secondary returns, so the defense can improve, especially against a run, because they were getting throttled in that category.
And then moving to the 4-3, so you look at linebacker, you want to keep an eye on Xavier Gooden, a guy that's 6'2", 225, moved from safety down to outside linebacker, so expect him to flourish. He runs a 4.3, so that's blazing fast coming off that edge as a linebacker, so that's key. That's a good thing to watch out of Gooden. Also, you mentioned that secondary is a concern to me. They have to get better at their anticipation as well as their technique. They struggle with technique and anticipating passes, so that's something they have to improve on. And what can Aldon Smith do for an encore? Outstanding freshman. Can he do it again? If so, look for this defense to take huge strides this year.
Greg Romius, Pierre Paul, he's in the mold of that. So in a couple of years, this guy could be a great first-round selection for an NFL team.
Yep.
Well, the Cornhuskers are back, and there's a lot of optimism in Lincoln, Nebraska. They're coming off a 33-0 blanking of Arizona in the Holiday Bowl. That's good enough for a 10-win season, and they were this close of knocking off Texas in that Big 12 championship game. Bo Pelini now in his third year. He's working wonders there. Zach Lee is the front runner. He was the quarterback last year. He improved as the season went on, but he's got two great backs in Roy Helu and Rex Burkhead. Niles Paul is a great tall receiver, and left tackle Jamarcus Hardrick is the only new guy. He's going to start at left tackle. He's a new JUCO guy, and they had over 147 rush yards per game. So is Nebraska going to get this offense up to par with the defense?
Well, it all depends on Zach Lee. Can he provide enough in the passing game to keep teams honest? Because you saw in that championship game against Texas, they just load up, stop throwing, and forced Lee to make plays down the field, which he couldn't. And they have to get Niles Paul involved in the offense. Well, get him the rock. First of all, he has to catch it consistently, but get him the rock as early and often as you can in that passing game. That's going to stretch out their defense, loosen up, be able to run the football down the field. And Burkhead has to do more of this and less of this. He runs side to sideline to sideline, too much north and south, get downfield, make plays. And I look at that offensive line. There's a lot of movement, but the group is still very solid.
Niles Paul, a great talent. They really need to get him going early in games to get his confidence up. Use him for the short route and use him for the deep route. Correct. So other wide receivers are going to need to step up because they know about Paul's talent. But defensive coordinator Carl Pelini doing a great job on defense. 10.4 points per game. They're giving up 93 rush yards per game, which is good. Under 3 yards per carry. 48% completion rating for opposing quarterbacks, but 44 sacks. A lot of that had to do with Ndamukong Suh, but they have promise on that defensive line with Jared Crick and defensive end Pierre Allen, Will Compton, first-team freshman All-American at linebacker, and the cornerbacks Prince Amukamara, 11 pass breakups, 5 interceptions. He was a first-team All-Conference performer, and Alfonso Denard is on the other side. So this defense is very aggressive, and they love to hit you.
Yeah, keep an eye on true freshman defensive tackle Jay Guy, 6'1", 300 pounds, out of Houston, Texas. A guy that's going to be a star for the Cornhuskers. Long lineage of great defensive players. You mentioned the big three, Crick, Amukamara, and Compton. Those guys are going to have to carry the defense. The defense is still going to be very, very solid, even if they lose Ndamukong Suh and Larry Asante in the second half.
Oh, those are big names, but you know Pelini, he's just going to keep reloading and reloading just like he did at LSU.
Yep.